In 2019, Kenya became one of the very few African countries to have or to enact a Data Protection Act, almost 5 years down the line. How have we managed to do this? Joining us on this week's episode of Inside Government is Immaculate Kassait. She is the Data Protection Commissioner. She's joining us on this episode to help us understand where are we in the implementation of the Act, the challenges and the opportunities ahead. Thank you very much, Madam Commissioner, for joining us. Help us understand, next year you'll be celebrating your 5th anniversary. What lessons have you learned in your journey to set up the Office of the Data Protection?
Thank you, Brian, for having me this evening. You could say many lessons learned, but one of the key ones is this office is barely 2.5 years. The Act, of course, it came into force in 2019, but the office was established in 2020. One of the key lessons learned is when you have to set up a new institution and implement a new regulatory framework, is to make sure it's in the mind and heart of people in the shortest time possible. Otherwise, it will be another piece of set of legislation that people put in the shelves. And based on that lesson learned, we've been very, very deliberate to create awareness. We are not yet there because, of course, this kind of awareness is a new topic. We are coming from a culture of sharing information. We really like sharing. I think it's African of us. So that is one of the key lessons learned. The other one is the importance of collaboration. That in order to make this a reality, we have continued to partner with civil society organization, government organization, because at the end of the day, we are keen on the ecosystem being better. The other one, lesson learned, because of how vast the area is, there is need for self-regulation. And but that is based on the type, even when you do a simple analysis of how many data controllers and data processors are, it may be very difficult for us to go to every single premise. So our lesson learned is to make sure the issue around self-regulation comes into fold. So through how to do it as in the coming days, we will be advertising for audit firms. And audit firms could be joint ventures or law firms, whichever, or people dealing with matter security trainers. And the whole essence is in this era where His Excellency is very keen on the digital transformation, the digital superhighway, data protection, playing a critical role of making sure that that environment is safe. So if we have more people working in this ecosystem, it's the safety of data, then it's going to be easier to do e-commerce.
Mm-hmm. You're just in a space that a lot of people are not very much used to, because you're supposed to ensure that the privacy of data is held in the best way possible, and you're supposed to check on how banks are handling customer data, how hospitals are also handling patients' data, and all these. How have you managed to, put the systems in place in such a short period of time?
It's short and not too short. I would say political goodwill we've been very lucky. One from the ministry, from our CS to our PS, that's very important. From our parliamentary committee, in terms of budget, oversight, resourcing, from National Treasury, from Public Service Commission, they are very instrumental in helping us in under 3 months to come up with the instrument for human resource. From our sagas, like yourselves, KBC, helping us tell the story about this office, from CA Communication Authority. I could name many institutions, civil society organizations. That goodwill collaboration has helped us, even with very limited resources, before we could even establish the office, to be able to put together the office and make it work. Because for starters, in a government journey of an office, the first thing you need is human resource. So getting multi-agencies, a based approach, we're able to get one, the regulations. to the human resource instruments. 3 are, of course, the office. 4, recruit staff. So you see that multi-agency approach has really, really helped. And also, because we didn't have resources, relying on donors like the British government, the EU, helping us with the strategic plan, capacity building. So that multidimensional approach of resource mobilization, collaboration, has really helped this office in getting its feet. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you also talked about, the registration of data processors, and, that is also supposed to be one of your mandates. How many have you managed to register so far?
So far, we are at 5,000.
5,000?
Yes, we are at 5,000.
Mm-hmm.
And our target next
enough?
year, no.
Mm-hmm.
The target next year is to actually get to 20,000. We're including this one, so we want to see if we can get 7,000. When we establish regional offices, we are going to fast track that process. Mm-hmm. Our process is quite seamless. The system was launched by His Excellency, earlier in the year. You log in online, you register, you get a certificate within 14 days. Mm-hmm. So we are encouraging people to register. Our target should be minimal. It's rather straightforward. As long as the law prescribes what the requirements are, as long as you're processing personal information, personal information is from full of telephone number, my name, address, special data, and if you have an employees within a certain threshold, if you have an income of above 1 million shillings, there are certain categories who are compulsory. We've tried to break down that information of who is required to register online. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And when you look at other sectors of the economy, where are you having the highest compliance?
I would say it's hard to. We have not done a compliance test yet. So in terms of, because people assume registration is the compliance, and the thing is, no, it is not. Mm-hmm. Next year we should be able to give a feel in terms of compliance. So far, we've only audited 40 fintechs where we are digital providers, where we knew there was a red flag in terms of things that were happening. But I wouldn't say that we have done that report. We hope that we can. We've done a report recently funded by EU in GIZ on where we are in terms of data protection. That should give us insights. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you have audited about 40 digital lenders?
40, yes, digital
in a country
lenders.
with more than 150.
Correct.
What did you discover in your audit?
I think it's a journey. Let me say that. I will give you the duration of time we've taken. It will differ. What mechanism do they have a data protection? Privacy, some did not have. What is data protection by design and by default? Some may not understand that. So our work when we audited is just to identify what are those gaps that are there so that to be able to improve the process. And remember, I always insist that data protection, our idea is, even as much as we find, is to make sure it's compliant. We want people to actually embrace compliance so that we make the ecosystem easier.
Mm-hmm. You still have more than 110 to go. Do you plan to audit them as well?
More than that. And that's what I said, because of the nature of data protection being very diverse. It's important for us to be able to equip other people or institutions that can help us with this journey of compliance. So when we pre-qualify or accredit those firms, they'll also go out there and help us in terms of this journey of compliance under the part of self-regulation. Mm-hmm. Yes, and we've seen other institutions which are mandated with the regulatory framework, doing the same. They accredit certain institutions, they help us in terms of the compliance journey for the other institutions. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what is an example of, to what point would you say that a company is compliant?
I would say, the Data Protection Act is quite detailed. If we were to say that a company is compliant, it means all aspects of data protection under the Section 25 are adhered to. Would say, there are a lot, Brian. Let me say.
So it is possible then to comply?
Yes, it is possible to comply, because what you do is to make sure that the bare minimum for instance.
And the bare
minimum would be for when Section 25 in terms of principles of data protection, principles of doing a data protection impact assessment, making sure you're reporting breaches if that happens, making sure you have a governance process, that you have data protection officers. Yes, those are some of the things
those are the bare minimums.
Those I would say towards the bare minimum of making sure that you're working on the compliance journey. And compliance, let's remind ourselves, is a cycle. It's not an end on itself.
Mm-hmm. Because you must keep on carrying audit exercise
and self-assessment all the time, all the time. But it starts with even our own audit of how much information you're holding, how it's being processed, where it's being stored.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you look at both the public and the private sectors, who is catching up pretty fast?
Of course, private sector. Many times private sector. At times, public sector, we are late adapters.
And how are you dealing with that now?
We are in several ways. One is our continuous program with KSG, where is in terms of training. Two, we are not very deliberate. In the coming financial year, we actually want to train data protection officers in public sector. And then three, you've seen us hold enough meetings and on request to just make sure they are up to speed in as far as data protection is concerned. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And which sectors of the economy would you say that you have seen a high number of compliance?
Like I said, we are not done compliance report. I would say registration. Let's say it's across board. It's across board when it comes to, you see a lot of keenness from people in the banking sector, a lot of keenness from people in telecommunication sector. It's across the board because, yeah. But next time when we have this interview, in the end of this month or next month, we'll be able to break down the entire statistics of the differences in terms of the different sectors and how many have registered. Mm-hmm. Compliance, we can't put a figure yet. When we do audit next year, then we'll be able to give a figure. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And in terms of, your office is also supposed to penalize, institutions that are not adhering to the Data Protection Act. How many have you managed to penalize so far?
So far, 3.
3. Which are they?
So far, 3. Then common knowledge. Common knowledge of they fall in the category of tech. They fall in the category of building. They fall in the category.
Building.
Yes. They also fall in the category of digital lenders. That's the categorization of the ones we are finalizing.
Mm-hmm. And the highest penalty was 5M?
5 million. We hope it's more, but that is what it is for now. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then there comes the other question. I mean, if I am going to breach the Data Protection Act and make more money, then why then shouldn't I breach, make my millions, penalize 5M? Why can't it be, on a scale basis? But
that was the prayer that, like what we see in other continents, for instance, Europe under GDPR, the penalties are quite significant. When it comes to us, there was a limit, and I assume the crafters of the law then were looking at this as a growing economy, and therefore did not want to make them very big. However, it's an area that can be reviewed. Why should I comply, even if perhaps I have at my disposal that money? We always have to remind ourselves that one of the significant things about data protection, it's about knowing your customer. It's about ethical way of doing, conducting business. Today, a penalty might look very small for you, but in the long run, what does that mean for your bottom line and the trust by your customers? Mm-hmm. Well, 5 million means nothing. Customers will be empowered to ask even more difficult questions. So aren't you better off than being in readiness for purposes of addressing those kind of concerns? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are you having a conversation with lawmakers to try and see whether this can be changed?
Our priority right now in terms of data protection is the data sharing code and a few others. But of course, there's always room for review of the legislative framework, yes.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at the entire legal framework on data protection. I mean, are there gray areas that you think it is high time that we revisited and re-looked into those areas?
Of course they are there, but I would imagine that we'll have an opportunity to delve into the detail in terms of what those gray areas are. Mm-hmm. On top of my mind, let me say, let's have another opportunity to talk about them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Are they significant?
But we are implementing the law, and we are not so, in terms of implementing, always advised to implement the law even for a minimum of 3 years or 4, then you know where the gaps are. We are only on 2.5 year of implementation. Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it should give you enough direction to know where we are going, definitely.
Yes. I think we're in a space where let's get Kenyans to first appreciate what the Data Protection Act is about. Mm-hmm. Let's get even the local mwananchi understand what it's about before we even start talking about long-term legal reform. There will always be legal reforms. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of knowledge about the role and the mandate of your office, what is the rate of knowledge here in Kenya? I mean, I remember, a research was done by Infotract. That was in 2021. They talked about 71% of Kenyans do not really understand what is the role of the Office of Data Protection. Are we still at this number?
I don't think so, but like I say, statistics are better released when you have a study, because that way, science doesn't lie. Science doesn't lie. I may not have the exact numbers with me right now. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And when you engage with companies in terms of adhering to the law, do they come across to you like the concept of data privacy and data protection is really taking root in Kenya?
I would say yes. For companies, yes. People are more conscious about data protection, and they can see anyway the kind of complaints. People are complaining if you use their data. I went somewhere in a restaurant, you took my photos, you posted on Instagram page, you never consulted me. So people are conscious. Let me say people are conscious about data protection. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And in terms of complaints from the public, what is the most common complaints that you are receiving from
Actually,
public?
digital lenders.
Digital
2
lenders.
years ago, during the height of election was one of them, political parties, but that has since gone down. We see digital lenders is still leading in terms of complaints. Mm-hmm. Yes. And
why digital lenders?
I think it's the practice that, like I said, we share how their products are probably designed without limitations of data minimization. So you see you're accessing information of people who are not even party to the contract. And the customer not understanding, you can actually object to processing, which is one of the rights under the Data Protection Act. So when you share, and then also, like has often been said, they pry on the vulnerability of people. So vulnerable, you sign terms and conditions, you never understood them, so it becomes an issue later when it becomes to repayment of the loan, and then they start accessing information. But we are grateful the CBK change of laws. That is one of the things that is trying to streamline this process, and even we continue to do so. We have seen when we started initially, you'd write to digital lenders, they are not keen. Now you can see those who are serious actually respond and even seek legal advice to actually see how to do. And also we have been conducting trainings on digital lenders to try and strengthen that, because if you see an area has a lot of capacity gaps, then the best thing is to actually then build the capacity. Just recently we had an additional training of almost 50 digital lenders in University of Maastricht, funded by the European Union, just to try and build capacity. Like I keep saying, it's important for us to keep insisting about compliance. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I like the fact that you also brought about the issue of political parties, because during the electioneering period, a lot of Kenyans, are receiving
correct,
unsolicited messages. Yes. Vote for this party, vote for this party, and political parties in Kenya being who and what they are. I mean, how then do you enforce the privacy law on these?
It starts from self-awareness. It starts from awareness, for sure, from data subject, becoming to demand You saw it. So people, and as a result of that, we saw quite tremendous effort by the Office of Registrar of Political Parties. We worked with them very closely to make sure we also put out an advisory and a guidance note on how to process data when it comes to matters of elections. In addition to that, we also saw you could not access certain information. I say we are not there because we are used to sharing, but we've made some progress.
We have made some progress.
Yes.
And what about a situation whereby you also have telcos, sending push messages and notification to their customers, without their consent? Are you also dealing with these cases?
I haven't seen messages from that category. What we've seen is from maybe supermarkets or service providers who then push unsolicited messages. And when we brought it to their attention, they have desist. And I keep saying, if they don't desist from sending you messages, please report to us. Seek first that they deactivate. If they don't, then we are here to help. Yes.
What is the reporting process?
You go online, there are several reporting processes, but the most convenient one is online. You can file a complaint online, you can send us an email, you can deliver it physically. Those are all options available to the data subject or anyone who is dissatisfied. Yeah.
For somebody who is watching these, conversation and for one reason or the other, they don't have access to online services. What is the other alternatives? You talked about SMS line?
Yes, they can call us, but they can also drop the application to us. Yes.
Do you have like a short code where they can send?
No, we don't have a short code. But there is a phone where you can call.
How many complaints do you get on average per month?
On average per month, let me say, I'll say the totals. Currently, we have over 700 active. But so far, we've received almost 3,000. But you see, then we have to sift through and decide which one we are taking on and which one we are not taking on. Yes.
So 700.
700. Those are the active ones. Yeah.
What are the main complaints?
Like I said, it is mostly digital lenders.
Digital lenders.
Yes.
Let's also talk about capacitating your office. I know you have launched your strategic plan 2023 to 2025, and you've talked about hiring about 277.
Actually, that's the strategic plan. That was our projection. But what we have as an approved structure is actually 92 staff members. We're supposed to be present in 13 regions. And in 13 regions, so far we've recruited, we'll be opening offices at least 2 to 3 per year. So far, last financial year, we expanded to Kisumu. Our offices are there available in Kisumu, Mombasa, and Nakuru.
And these offices are functional?
Yes, they are. We have staff there. Yes.
And what would you say is the optimum staffing levels for the office?
Our strategic plan is 200. But we are growing. We are 2 years. We are hopeful by the time we are year 5, 6, we'll have seen what it is. Being in the region will also improve access. Like those ones you're asking whether they are able to send us phone calls or post their complaints online. At least when they're in the region, they're able to then come and tell us what is expected of them.
And you're talking about in the long term. Are you anticipating a situation whereby you'll be in all the 47 counties?
We hope so, but let's see how it burns out. For now, let's try and build the capacity of what we have so far. Yes.
Because your midterm target is eight regions?
Actually, midterm target is 8 regions, and by the end of the strategic plan is all 13.
Is all 13. The issue of funding remains a thorny issue because we live in a country whereby few resources, are chasing after, so many commitments. How are you coping with budget-wise?
I think it's incumbent about every government institution. When you have limitation in budget, you simply reduce the size of your shoe and fit in it. Yes.
This is what you've done.
We rationalized our budget. That is what we did, but I can't complain. They probably have other government institutions which had to rationalize even further. And like I said, we've gotten, because this office and given the significance it is in government, we've gotten relatively good support from both National Treasury, Parliament, and even our main ministry. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let us talk about, Kenya is home to more than 100 multinationals, who are domiciled here. And, part of the data they have is about Kenyans. Mm-hmm. So how are you working with them, bearing in mind that some of them are headquartered overseas, and this is where, the data is kept?
I think we try as much as possible to work within the confines of the law. What does the law say when it comes to storage of data? Luckily, I would say we find our law as one of the most flexible in the region, where it says you only keep a copy of certain category of data and you can host others in cloud. In the era of cloud, that allows flexibility. There are certain categories of data, whether it's civil, health, education, the data anything captured in the Cyber Security Misuse Act, and so on, and finance. Those are the categories you're supposed to keep a copy here. I would, what has happened in terms of collaboration is continuous conversation with those multinationals. If there is any point of clarification, we clarify. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Have you done that yet?
We continue to have conversation with multinationals, by the way, yes.
Mm-hmm. And are they, bearing in mind that some of them, they come from, countries where, data protection and privacy laws, are very strong. So you expect that compliance is very high at that level. Mm-hmm. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's the case. It's the case. Yes, it's the case. And what you do is advise within the confines of the Kenyan law. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Paint to us where you see your office in the next 5 years.
In the next 5 years, of course, then there'll be a new data commissioner, for sure. Having said that, I hope by the time my term comes to an end as an office, I will have institutionalized, system structured, and leave a wonderful work culture in the organization, because that brings sustainability to the organization. I hope we'll have completed the strategic plan as it is, but most importantly, I hope at the end of 5 years, we will see an enhanced trust in terms of transparency and data protection. We want to see companies that actually see customer as king or queen. When they begin to see customers' data as king or queen, they will then respect the right of the data subject. You will see less breaches, because people will have embraced data default by design and by default. We will see trust increase in companies, so that people are not worried when they share the information is being misused or being sold to a broker. We will see more investment in terms of the country. Because if people feel that their data the country has the proper regulatory framework, we will see more foreign investments in this country. And of course, Kenya becomes a silicon savannah that it always is. We will see Kenya being the pace setter even more in as far as digital transformation is concerned, so that we become the benchmark for the region. And in the long run, increase e-commerce, because everybody feels that their data is safe, and we are transacting online, and nothing can possibly go wrong. And if it goes wrong, because we can't guarantee, there are the necessary steps and measures that actually come to make sure that there is correction.
Mm-hmm. Are you working with, or have you launched any partnerships with any institutions to try and ensure that more Kenyans are appraised on the importance of guarding their data?
Indeed, we continue to enter into partnership with both government, non-government organizations, civil society. The one I said first was Kenya School of Government. And you'll be very happy to note that this year, performance appraisal targets have actually identified data protection as one of the issues that organizations are supposed to comply. So that pushes compliance. And very, very rightfully put part of the reason we want to gazette or accredit actually companies is to make sure that they are adhering, they will help us in monitoring organization and they work with us this journey of data protection. Mm-hmm. Yes.
What is your message to the people that are watching you?
I want to assure them, looking at you or the camera.
Just look at the camera.
I want to assure them that their data is safe, and this office is here to make sure that their personal information is protected and that they are king and queen in terms of their data. If anybody has any concerns, our office remains open to be able to address your concerns. And to the investors in this coming to this country, the Office of the Data Commissioner exists to make sure that the data of Kenyans is safe, so that we thrive in the area of e-commerce and we work towards transformation and the digital superhighway. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, we have been having this conversation around data protection and privacy and the implementation of the Data Protection Act. And we have been talking to the Data Commissioner, Immaculate Kassait. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And you have been watching Inside Government. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.